All right, everybody, we're gonna get started. So Andrew has a lot to go over today, so I'm just gonna cover a few things real quick, but just welcome everyone to FBDI Exile. Before I pass it off to Andrew, we'll just go over two things. Everyone will receive the recording and presentation within the next 24 hours, following today's webinar. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, I recommend adding them into the Q&A section or the chat as they pop up. This will allow us to have all the questions ready to go for the Q&A portion at the end. But without further ado, Andrew, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Steph. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this More for Apps presentation centered around supplier and customer master data in Oracle Cloud Fusion. So at More for Apps, we've recently launched support for these areas in our ERP Cloud Toolbox product. And today we just want to go over why it's so important to have streamlined methods to create and maintain your master data in these areas and why we've prioritized those features. But we won't just be talking about ourselves. To understand how our tools stack up against the other options you have, we need to look at those too. So we'll discuss the challenges holistically, including on the front end, and we'll discuss some of the solutions you might be considering, particularly FBDI. So I'll just start with a little bit of background on me. So I'm Andrew. Hi, everyone. So I'm part of commercials team here at More for Apps. That's where we focus on, I guess, explaining what our solutions have to offer, and we help out with the implementation process. My background is more technical. So I was a developer before I was doing this work, going back to 11i days. And I was actually the lead developer for our supplier loading tool in our 12 or eBusiness Suite. So I've got a fair bit of exposure to this master data integration problem. And more recently, I've got a bit of experience using FBDI and those other sort of Oracle integration tools. But let's get into it. So this is what we'll be covering today, if I can bring up the slide. And like I said, the main focus will be supplier and customer master data. So we'll discuss the Oracle approach, some of the strengths and weaknesses there. We'll stop briefly in the middle at one point to just get a bit of feedback from the audience about, what areas are impacting your business in this topic area. And then we'll start, looking at ways to improve things. We'll spend a bit of time talking about spreadsheet integration in general terms. What are the reasons we might want to employ it? What are the traps and so on? What do we want to avoid? And then we'll narrow the focus a bit and look at what's available within the Oracle ecosystem. So we'll look at some of the integrations that Oracle puts out in front of you. Mostly we'll look at FBDI because that's heavily used. And then we'll introduce you to the More for App solutions and try to give you a sense about, what those are all about. So let's get going. So let's start off maybe talking a little bit about who we are at More for Apps, so you know who we are, why you consider our opinions to be valid. So we're a third-party software house. Oh, I've gone the wrong way with the button there, sorry. And we've been offering spreadsheet-based solutions for loading and analyzing ERP data for quite a long time. We've got a global footprint and we're a trusted supplier to quite a large portfolio of customers using our products regularly to speed up their data processing. So we're in the 11i eBusiness Suite space. Our product there is EBS Toolbox. But today's discussion will center on ERP Cloud Fusion. And that product that we offer there is called ERP Cloud Toolbox. And that's a suite of spreadsheet-based loading tools geared to improve data loading performances and outcomes in Oracle Cloud Fusion. And of those 4 products you see listed there, the most interesting for this talk today is the finance module, which is where we include the supplier and customer integrators. But we'll come back to that later on. Let's start at the beginning. Supplier and customer data management. What's the problem? Well, maybe problem isn't the right word. Let's say challenge. So if we stick with the data itself, the first thing to mention is complexity. So with both suppliers and customers, there's a significant amount of scope for data collection. And although you'll be unlikely to be storing everything, there's a lot to scoop up, if you like. So looking at suppliers, organizational header data, product services, payment info, contacts, addresses, and all of that stuff. Quite a heavy footprint. And on the customer side, a similar story. Organizational header data again, tax details, account and site stuff. And because it's Oracle, you can set up DFFs at every level and put in attachments. Now, that's not a problem in and of itself, of course. That's actually a strength of Oracle. We're talking about a powerful ERP system here, but it is a complex job feeding all of this information in, which means it takes time. And that brings us to the second challenge, which is volumes. Now, most organizations will be storing, large numbers of suppliers and customers. And whatever mechanism we use to collect the details for these individual organizations, we need to be mindful that whatever we're doing, we need to replicate that process for all the others. So I'm guessing you'll have hundreds, maybe thousands of each. So when volumes creep up, entering and maintaining that data set becomes a significant bottleneck. So Cloud Fusion, that's a top tier ERP system, isn't it? There's only one version. So it's designed to accommodate the most straightforward and the most detailed requirements for every element. And that's a challenge, isn't it, in the front end, because that means the forms have to accommodate for every scenario. And they're not streamlined for quick, efficient data entry. You get the functionality, but then the usability takes a little bit of a hit. And as soon as we start playing catch up to keep our supplier or customer data up to date, those challenges do turn into problems. And what impact are these bottlenecks going to have on our processes? We need to prepare our purchase orders, invoices, handle our supply chain, and generate our revenue. And for that to happen, we need this information ready. Business is not going to wait for anyone, so any processes that can't cope with our demands will lead to inaccuracies, incomplete data, and then the net effect of that is delays in preparing all of those documents I just mentioned. Also rework, added costs for audits of the data, perhaps extra hiring to fill the gaps and so on. Now, in a minute, we're going to start talking about what we can do about that, but let's maybe pause for a minute now and just find out what challenges your organizations are facing in this area. So we have a poll question here that would love it if you could answer for us. Hopefully Stephanie can bring that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I just launched it.
So just maybe submit one or two answers there, depending on what's brought you into the audience today.
I'll give everybody some time to read it over. A lot of choices.
I'm just having a look as it comes in.
I'll give you a few more seconds. All right. Ooh. Okay.
Still a couple coming in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna end it. All right. Let's see. Share results. All right. It looks like overall data quality and cost, like cost challenges, fixing errors, reactive versus proactive. Yeah, kind of all over the board.
Yeah, it seems to be a quite distributed problem set. Well, that's good. I guess that means there's no pain point that everybody's facing, but I guess everybody's a little bit dissatisfied. So let's just move on. I'll just see if I can close that. It's blocking my view there. So the question that we face now is, how do we improve things? Well, the first thing we need to do is find a solution that isn't so hard to use, I guess. What we need is a mechanism to get that data in without all the painful manual steps. So we could go off and build a custom integration to speed these things up for us, but that's expensive in dollar terms and also in resource use. You'll need IT experts, developers, project leads, and you'll need to take the functional people away from their jobs for QA and test during implementation. And then afterwards, you'll have something of a maintenance headache. And let's be honest, organizations want to focus on core business, so bespoke solutions are a distraction. So the remaining options, well, the most likely to suit you are these two. Now, robotics is, well, we say in the UK, it's a Marmite thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but either you like them or you don't. I'm not a fan personally, but there are those that are. But when it comes to supplier or customer master data, the complexities around the user form generally mean these are highly complex bots to build with a low chance of providing a decent return on investment. So you'd end up moving the workload from the user to the IT. So I wouldn't really recommend that personally, which leaves spreadsheet integration. Now, most of you know what that is, but just in case, here's a high-level explainer. And essentially you just take out the front end forms and use spreadsheets for your data capture. So you upload your data from there and respond to any data errors all at once after the load is triggered. So you have to populate the worksheets, but all the form navigation is stripped out. And look, spreadsheets have a lot of advantages when it comes to data capture. For a start, people are widely familiar with them, so there's a minimum need for user training. And they lend themselves to laying out these large, complex data sets in one place with a 2D grid, if you like. And of course, you get those shortcuts, the replication perks like copy and paste and formulas and so on. Now, it's not a new idea. I'm guessing most in the audience have had exposure to it, perhaps with FBDI or maybe with WebADI in the old EBS world. The problem is finding one that suits your needs. And actually, Oracle has never really been that strong in this area, preferring to provide development platforms rather than end user applications. So typically, their solutions leave you with a lot to do yourself. So in Cloud Fusion, this is what they offer. ADFDI, that's the sort of live data entry spreadsheet mechanism. And this would be a really good fit, actually, but it's quite limited by what templates Oracle provide. And I don't know of any for Supplier or Customer Master. Now, it ought to be possible to fashion one yourselves, but then that's a custom development. And I'm not actually sure ADFDI would be the right route to take for that. Oracle itself doesn't promote ADFDI for big bulk integrations, and it's the limitation to about 20,000 records in there, something like that. The middle one, Visual Builder add-in for Excel. This is another sort of semi-development platform provided as an Excel add-in. Yeah, well, for technical reasons, it's better suited to fairly simple objects, but it does allow organizations to use the new REST services. These are much better than what we used to in the past, and you can enable real-time data loading, validation, and feedback. But again, it's a platform. You have to build your own applications. So we find that a lot of people aren't really heavily using it because it's a custom development. And there's also multiple sheets needed for parent-child relationships, which can lead to a difficult sort of user experience. And lastly on the list, most people know this one, FBDI. It's a broadly available basic tool, essentially for migration purposes. And it does actually a really great job when it's used for this purpose. But that's an offline workbook. So there's no validation, no feedback in the worksheet. And I am actually going to focus on FBDI today because it's the one that gets the most use. The other ones are more complicated. Either they don't work out of the box or they're too narrowly focused to support, everything that you require. So FBDI support in Cloud Fusion, it's pretty broad actually. This is a list of templates available across the finance and procurement sectors, if you like. It's not actually 100% everything. I had to shift some things off to fit it on the slide, but you can see there's a lot there, and relevant to today's discussion are these ones here. So the yellow ones are part of the supplier setup, and the orange ones are customers. You can immediately see that one of the main problems is that we're not talking about a single spreadsheet for the whole process. Customers actually isn't that extreme. You've got two templates. One is a sort of simplified, cut down version. That's one on the left, and the one in the middle is the fully detailed one that supports pretty much everything: parties, sites, customer accounts, site uses, contacts, and all of that. Quite a bit in that one, actually. Now, on the supplier side, it's a different story. You can see there are 9 templates there. And each of these contains its own subset of data that you need to set up. And so there's a lot to do, piece things together, link between the files and everything to get it working correctly for you. Now, on the face of it, you might think, well, looking at that customer templates will leave you better off, basically because you only need to use the one file, that detailed one in the middle of the screen. But if we look closely at it, I'm actually not sure which is worse, because this is it here, that middle one. This is well, there are 19 tabs if you look at the bottom. They scroll off to the right. So you need to set your data up in each one. So this is the main one, party definition. You lay out your customer party details there, and then you click through each tab, laying out each sub-level of data. And you have to make sure that you've linked it correctly with the parent record. So with the party site, that's done using the party original system reference value. Likewise on the customer account side. But then if you get down to account sites, you need a link using the party side and the account reference. So it's pretty fiddly. And keep in mind that you can only see one of these tabs on the screen at any given moment. So if you want to check you're using the right reference codes, you're going to need to click back up to the parent tab, scroll through to find the value. Hope you haven't made a mistake. It's extremely complicated, and I'd say it's beyond the average data entry clerk. And then when you're finished with all that, the final step in the spreadsheet is to generate the files that Oracle needs to receive. So on this first tab, there's that button there, and there'll be a number of file dialogues to work through once you click on that. And then when you're done in the spreadsheet, there's still a whole lot you need to do. So this is the FBDI process flow. It's pretty convoluted. So this is the bit here that we just did in the spreadsheet. But then we have to process it all through the front end. So there are things to do in Excel, CSV, conversions to do, import jobs, error reports, and PDF format to reconcile. And then any corrections, you've got to feed them back into the worksheet and run the process again. So two things that stick out to me looking at this. Well, first is that you've got a pretty complicated process here. It is one that your data loading team might not have the expertise to operate, at least not without that risk of human error breaking things down. The other is the burden on your data entry team, even assuming that you're comfortable on the operational side of things. It's going to take a lot of time to accomplish your result here. It's an iterative process, so reacting to errors, making corrections will mean looping through it a number of times per upload with all the switches from Excel, Oracle, PDF documents. It's pretty daunting. Now, I want to say I'm not criticizing FBDI, but I mean, I am a bit. And the problems we see with FBDI are highlighted in numerous discussion boards and forums from people, essentially mostly people using it in a BAU scenario. These are the sort of summaries of its drawbacks, and it's pretty basic stuff. Thing is, FBDI does an excellent job for its intended purpose, which is as a one-off migration tool. But the problem is for BAU, you could say it's the integration tool of last resort. It's not really suited to be rolled out to end users. So what? That's the Oracle solutions. What better options do you have? And this is the bit where we throw up our branding. Today's session isn't purely altruistic because we are keen to get you interested in our ERP Cloud Toolbox. Now, we haven't always been in a position to talk about this area of master data with this tool, but in the last 6 months, that's all changed, and we've launched integrators for customers and suppliers. And historically in our EBS scenario, these were among our most popular products. So it's fair to say we're genuinely excited to be able to showcase this functionality to you guys in the Cloud Fusion world. So you'll find them, as I said, in the finance module within the ERP Cloud Toolbox. Well, what's the ERP Cloud Toolbox? Well, the short answer is it's a spreadsheet integration tool, I guess, striking the perfect balance between usability and power. So we've seen FBDI, we've sort of seen the shortcomings there, and the Cloud Toolbox hits them head on. It's got advanced features for creating and maintaining customer and supplier data. You get detailed error messaging, upfront validation, and a UX which enables the data owners without any reliance on IT experts or back-end processes. So it's positioned to deliver increased data accuracy and streamlined data entry. So before we go into too much detail, I'll just give you a quick walkthrough using screenshots, and we will dive a bit deeper shortly. This is the supplier integrator within the finance module, and the customer one looks much the same. So you can see here that the product works as an Excel add-in. So you've got those dedicated controls there for your dialogue up and down from Oracle. And it's designed to give you maximum visibility of your whole supplier or customer at one time. So the whole data hierarchy is in the one sheet. Headers and, sub-level sections, like in this example, attachments, all on the same sheet. There are more sections over to the right, like addresses and contacts and so on. Because they're all there together, there's less scope to miss elements out because you can scroll across, eyeball it, make sure everything's there. The download feature is really worth emphasizing. So you can also directly source the sheet with data from Oracle, and that's really useful for things like updates or any data replication tasks that you might be interested in performing. Edit forms allow you to inspect multiple values at one time, and the Oracle validation lists and so on are there to ensure a clean data set at entry time. You can see the type control highlighted red there because that's an invalid value, so you can pull the right value down. And you'll get feedback directly in row for your uploads. Errors are clearly marked. They generally indicate which field you'll need to correct, just like we saw in the form, actually. So your layouts are also flexible. The tool uses the column headings in row 9 there to identify the purpose of each column. And that means that you are free to move your columns around as you see fit to give you the most agreeable working environment. You can remove them if you're not using, and it won't impact the upload. So you can design a worksheet that really absolutely fits your process without any unnecessary stuff in it. And then this button here, the upload process is invoked by this. So there's no steps to perform outside the spreadsheet. Fire and forget if you like. So what does it look like in action? Well, I'm going to walk you through a little recording I made earlier in the week here, which should allow you to visualize how it might work for you. So we'll swap things around from the last slide. We'll look at the customer integrator first up. And we'll start with a typical FBDI scenario where we're creating a number of customers together. After that, we'll look at some data maintenance. And actually, that's key. Even if we set aside all the usability issues, where FBDI really falls down is with data updates. And maintenance of master data is absolutely as important as the initial setup. Without more fraps, you don't really have a single user tool to accomplish both tasks. So let's take a look at it. Here we are with the toolbox open in Excel. These toolbars at the top govern the process. First step is to log in. Put in the user and password. Now we're looking at a customer sheet. We can generate any sheet we want up here. So for this one, we choose the finance module and customers from the list. But we already have a sheet, so I won't create another. Scrolling through, you can see all the columns supported, and you can see there's loads, and it's all in one sheet. And it whizzes by fast, but you can see contacts, addresses, sites, and so on. Everything's there. And a big sheet like this is hard to manage, but with more fraps, you always have complete flexibility. You can move columns around, delete those that you don't use, and you can do it to as many as you want till you've got the layout you need. So here's the finished job, a sheet geared towards customer creations. And scrolling through, you can see I've got a lot, but it's way more manageable now. Next step is to get the data in. Obviously, you can type your values in here directly into the worksheet cells. And you can use Excel features to help you, like formulas. You also have data forms available if you want to make sure your data is clean. So in this form, I can pick values from the drop-downs. And these lists are all generated by your Oracle setup. But the real win with spreadsheet integration is if you can paste your data in from an external source. So the data is gathered elsewhere and passed to the clerk for entry. And there's lots of ways to go about that. And as long as my source matches my sheet format, the hard work is done. And as you saw, we can adapt our sheets to match our source format. And the toolbox has some neat features to accelerate your data entry. You have a defaults row up here, and you can use that to seed the spreadsheet without having to enter the same value in for every row. And these values get auto-populated in the row at validation when there isn't an explicit value already entered there against the relevant cell. So now we're ready to load, and I can drag my cursor over a selection of records and upload just those ones using this option up here, or I can upload everything on the sheet, which is what I'll do. So now the toolbox is validating the data and building the cores to the Oracle Web Services. It takes a few moments, but you can see the defaults dropped in and feedback is there for the validation passes. Already we can see something's popped up. But that doesn't stop the process. All the valid records are processed. and then we'll look at any errors like that one afterwards. And there we go, the result. 10 customers created, 1 rejected. And we're not left scratching our head as to why. The error message is there explaining the problem, and the cell is highlighted. So we can just fix the problem, and we could use the form to do that. But in this case, it's easy enough to just do it in the worksheet. And then we upload that record again. All done, completely from within Excel. No external steps, no error reports to reconcile. And we have the registry IDs now for the new customers, so let's copy them into the clipboard and we can start doing some useful things. Now, we saw earlier how easy it is to customize your columns and build worksheets to match your needs, and we can take that to the extreme. So in this sheet, we have a very limited selection of columns, but it's perfectly geared to do some simple data maintenance. And this is the real win over FBDI and all those other tools. So if we paste those registry IDs back in here, we can download the party and account info into the sheet, minus all the other details not relevant to what we want to update. There it is. And so we can update our parties. We'll add a couple of missing taxpayer IDs. You can see we're putting the update action into each row. But if you're making the same change across the whole data set, you can do it even faster than that. Using the defaults functionality, we can put the update action there. And we're going to change all these payment terms to 30 net. So we just clear the existing values out and let the toolbox do our data entry for us. And click on upload. New terms values drop in. And in a matter of seconds, it's all done. And you can use the download feature to check it if you like. Just take those registry IDs, paste them in down here, and do the download again. And there's what's in Oracle now. Our new payment terms, and those taxpayer IDs too. How simple was that? I actually noticed when I recorded that, I wanted to highlight it before I carry on. When we do the download there, it sort of looks like you need to have the supplier registry ID numbers. You don't need to have the numbers. You can do it by name, various other filters in the spreadsheet too. There's even an entry form where you can select individual controls that you want to use for your download. But I just wanted to emphasize that you're not, you don't have to have that system value. Anyway, moving on, that's a pretty good walkthrough of how the product works, but I guess what are the real wins in real terms? So I'm going to play another short video now. This is to highlight the performance of the toolbox when viewed side by side with the equivalent process in FBDI. And we'll mix things up with this one. We'll use the supplier integrator for this example. So we're going to load 25 suppliers, each with a single address, site, and contact, and there'll be a few other things in there as well. And we'll do it with both the ERP Cloud Toolbox and Oracle's FBDI template set for suppliers, which is those 7 or 8 ones we saw on that earlier slide. So I'll just click that off. We'll be using the same data set for both products. We'll first prepare the data in the spreadsheet and then upload it to Oracle. Starting with data preparation, on the left you see the More for Apps toolbox, on the right FBDI. We'll start the real-time clock running, but we'll speed things up at various points as we go. In the case of the More for Apps toolbox, we copy the whole raw data set. But with FBDI, it's piecemeal, so we just start by copying the header data into the first template. By copying the whole data set with More for Apps, you can just move the columns across. We've already finished the header with More for Apps, but on the right, we're falling behind because there's so many columns and you can't remove any, so there's a lot of scrolling around to find them. We also need to manually add any values missing from the source document, but with More for Apps, we skip that step using defaults. Right, we've finally got the header data ready, and now we have to convert it to CSV format for the FBDI load process. And then we open up the next FBDI template spreadsheet to do the addresses. Looking back at More for Apps, you can see we've almost finished. Just site attachments left and completed. With FBDI, it's only the header done, and we're working through the addresses. So let's skip ahead a bit and look at the preparation results. With the More for Apps toolbox, the supplier header took 28 seconds versus a minute 29. Addresses were 9 times faster, contacts 5.5 times. And as you can see from the rest of the results, More for Apps is dramatically faster. In this case, it was literally a 2-minute job. Now that the data is prepared, we'll upload it. So we'll have the real-time stopwatch running again, but we'll want to watch it a bit faster. With more fraps, it's a simple one-step process. And there are some data errors for both the tools and the dataset. And more fraps tells us exactly where those problems are. And we might use the user form to fix the issues, or just use standard Excel to overwrite the value. And press upload again. If we look at FBDI, we're still doing the first file upload. We have to do that, load the interface file for import, and then run the import itself. In fact, there's 3 different requests to run for each data section of the suppliers. So let's fast forward a bit. In less than 2.5 minutes, it's all completed with more fraps. And still plenty to do with FBDI. But just like with the data preparation, the upload is miles ahead with more fraps. In fact, FBDI hadn't even completed the supplier header upload when more fraps had finished the entire job. And putting that together with the preparation time, we get a total load time of 4 minutes 24 against just shy of an hour. That's basically 12 times faster, and that's a huge difference. And we were able to manage it all in one worksheet versus 7 on the FBDI side. So I know which one I'd prefer. So that's a pretty stark comparison. And in general terms, we can compare the 2 approaches side by side too. Obviously, the ticks are what we're striving for. But look, it shouldn't be a surprise to see the More for Apps product come out on top, because these tools have been designed with FBDI in mind to remove all those problems we get with FBDI and to improve the user experience. And the end goal is essentially these 3 key points. And, with the good news is that we don't need to settle for FBDI. With More for Apps, there is a superior alternative out there. So I know, what a relief. That's what I think. That brings me more or less to the end of the prescribed content today. I think we went over by a minute or so. But we do have time for questions now. So I'll open up the discussion and hopefully we can answer any questions you have. So I'll let Stephanie maybe guide this part of the webinar.
Yeah, I have a couple, but feel free to just add them when you can in the Q&A section, and I'll read them as I go. But I think one of them is, do the More for Apps cloud products need any custom work? And I think that kind of ties into like, how long is the implementation for that and what's needed?
Well, the short answer is no. I certainly haven't heard of any requirement like that. The way Oracle's set up now, there's not really that much scope for customization. These tools come pre-configured for the REST services that you're essentially using to load the data. So unless those REST services are different on your end, which I can't imagine there would be any reason for that, then yeah, there's no need for customization. You can customize them. You saw what I did with the layouts. You can, I guess, manicure a worksheet that suits your needs, but there's no need to. This is really what works most comfortably for you.
And then how long would an implementation be for like a cloud product, since it doesn't have a lot of customization needed?
Yeah, well, there's not really an implementation phase. You're going to need to do some sort of QA, I guess, test, make sure that you're happy with how the feature works. But, as long as it's installed, that takes, let's say you assigned a day for it. It doesn't take that long, but if you're going to come back and forth with questions, maybe set aside a day, then you'll have a product that's running, and then you just need however long it takes you guys to, feel like you can trust the data that goes in and comes out. Most people do it within a week.
Okay, I have another question that's kind of related. It's who initially sets up or creates the ERP cloud toolbox? I guess it's more about the process of implementing and how we work together and get that going.
More maybe an installation question, I think. So
Yeah.
There's no implementation. Oracle's got these REST services, so we're just trying to harness them through Excel. So as long as you've got Excel set up in whatever workstation it is that you're using, you'll need an installation on that side for the end user so that their Excel has the add-in. You saw the little toolbars at the top there. That needs to be done on the PC. And then within Oracle, you'll need to assign some roles. Within the Oracle forms, you've got an access role and a responsibility under the old terminology to be able to say create a supplier. within Oracle Cloud Fusion, there is a separate role now for the web service to do the same thing. So you might be able to do something on the form side and not able to do it through the web services. So you need to assign the person the rights to do that. And we've got instructions on, what those roles that need to be assigned are and how to go about doing that.
Mhm.
It's fairly straightforward. Again, just set aside an hour or two. That's all you need to do, really.
Another question, do you have a trial version that we can try?
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something normally the salespeople like to answer that stuff. But yeah, we would typically, we'd have a discussion with you about, whether or not it is a product that suits you. And if you want to go further with it, there's normally a 5-day trial where we just give you a license and you can work as if you were a customer of ours. You can use it with full functionality, but also you can contact our support team if you've got any problems. So we treat you as a customer.
Another simple question, can updates be made in mass and in real time?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we just saw on
Hmm.
the demonstration. So you've got to get the information to the spreadsheet. There's a whole different set of ways you can go about that, however you like to use Excel, basically. Once you've got that data in and you've got some sort of satisfaction that it's valid, either the tools told you that or your internal teams there, you can literally press that button and it'll go through the whole spreadsheet. I think the example we had with suppliers was 25, and there's no limit. You could have 100,000 there, even more, but at a certain point you start to question whether a spreadsheet is the right tool for millions. But yeah, you literally can go through from the top of the spreadsheet to the bottom, yeah, and do it all en masse with one button.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have so far. But if you have any more, feel free to reach out to Andrew. He has his email here. We will reach out about the trial. We'll send you that information over. But before Andrew gives his final remarks, I just reiterate that the recording will be sent out tomorrow. So please keep an eye out for that. And just thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, I don't
Andrew,
really have
any
any
last
final
words?
remarks, but yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Just thank you, basically, even for attending. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully that was informative and worthwhile to you guys. Please do feel free to contact me. Those contact details have been hovering up there longer. I'll keep them up right till the end, so you can get hold of me after the session if there's anything that you think I missed.
All
Other than
right, well,
that,
thank you
thanks again.
guys.
Yeah.